I do believe now with Donna, Miss Alexander, Mr. Fears, and Mayfield, we do have a quorum. So, Mr. Fears, I don't know if you want to start off how we do every other meeting, and Mr. Randall's on here as well, and I'll let Mr. Randall speak as once you get that going.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. As stated, looks like we do have a quorum. I'm just going to, for the record, let those other the committee members say that they're on. So go ahead and speak your name and tell us, communicate that if you would. I'll let Josh, you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Josh Mayfield. Made it to the meeting successfully. Wasn't sure I was gonna.
Good. All right. And who's next? Let's see. I'm trying to figure.
Looks like Donna Pittman's on.
Okay.
Yes.
Donna, are you on? Okay. Are you calling in by phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Good. That's great. All right. And who else? I'm trying to.
Katie Alexander, Catherine Alexander.
Catherine, all right, thank you. And then, so that's it. Looks like everybody else. Let's go ahead and city staff. Why don't we just have a record of who the city staff are that are on? Chief, let's start with you.
Thank you, Chief Brad Halsey. And again, I want to apologize to everybody for the confusion on getting this meeting together. It's somewhat difficult, but I appreciate everybody being on here today.
You bet.
And Mark Randall, Assistant City Manager.
Okay, Mark, thank you.
Ken Jarnigan, Deputy Police Chief.
All right, Ken, thank you.
Dania Lee, Fiscal Administrator for the Police Department.
All right, Dania, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, having said that, that's our roll call. So I think, Chief, the best thing to do is for us to turn it over to you for the purpose of the meeting. And I'm a little, frankly, unsure of the purpose of the meeting as far as what we're trying to accomplish. So, I mean, I know what you're doing in general, but I guess why don't you explain that and then kind of we'll go from there.
Sure. Again, thank you. So yeah, as you guys recall, and I think Mr. Randall was going to get the exact date, we had discussed the use tax and how that money was to be spent. There's been, I guess there needs to be some clarification on that, and we wanted to come back to you as committee members to address those. We had 4 items on the council agenda that was postponed until this coming Monday. So I will let Mr. Randall speak to that, but that's the purpose today, is to talk in detail about not just overall use of the use tax, but specific uses of it.
Okay, that's helpful. I thought that was the case, and and it has been that in the last couple of meetings we have had questions relative to the use tax in particular and how that will all work. And so I think certainly is timely. So Mark, what do you got for us?
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for, again, this is Mark Randall, Assistant City Manager, and I'm really pleased to be with you here this afternoon. And thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be part of this meeting. We really do appreciate it. And, a little background, back in August 2019, the voters approved Proposition P, which was established a use tax for police and for animal services. $750,000 of that authorized amount was to go to animal services, and the rest was to go to police department to hire and equip 30 additional officers. And now we thought that they want to bring in $1.5 million a year, and so initially it was going to be a split in half, but the police half was going to grow over the years till eventually we could get to the point where we could hire those 30 additional officers. Well, we're really happy to report that the use tax is doing better than originally projected. It's already brought in $2 million in 2020. So we're able to move as aggressively as we can with the hiring of those additional officers. You know, once we get the 30 officers hired and equipped, then the use tax will, animal services is basically frozen at the 750 except for a cost of living increase. All the rest go to the police until 30 officers are hired and equipped. Then any residual amount waterfalls to the other sales tax funds, including the public safety sales tax fund. But we thought that would be years away before we'd ever get to that waterfall, but it may happen quicker than we thought. But like I said, because it's already at bringing in 2 million so far this year. So really the biggest barrier on getting our 30 new officers is just getting them hired, because it's, as the chief can talk later, it's very difficult, but they're working really hard to try to get additional officers brought in. So anyway, last April, as you recall, I believe it was April, Chief Halsey and I came to this committee to talk about the cost of equipping police officers that we were going to hire through the Proposition P use tax. We provide you with a drawing, which is we've attached to your agenda packet today, which just basically illustrated how everything that goes into equipping an officer, because people don't always realize everything. I mean, a uniform, badge, gun, all the equipment that goes into it. So actually it came out to $99,000 required to fully equip an officer. And now I figured, you know, a 3-year life cycle on those things, that'd be $33,000 a year. So it's a significant amount of money. And as you recall, the committee generally endorsed the plan to equip as outlined at that meeting, you know, with that illustration and the idea of trying to fully equip those officers. But since that meeting, Chief Halsey and his staff have obtained quotes for the purchase of specific equipment. And those purchases would be made using both the sales tax and the use tax dollars. The use tax part would only be going for officers hired through the use tax. And again, Chief can get into that a little bit later about where he's at in the hiring of Proposition P officers. But then a couple of weeks ago, 4 equipment purchases went before the city council. They were for portable radios, car video systems, vehicles, and mobile data terminals. These 4 purchases are described in detail in those cover sheets that were also in your agenda packet. As you can see, they tell about how it's divided between sales tax and use tax. Although I think the first one did not have that breakdown on the page we sent you, but we have that here that we can provide that to you. So anyway, the council, after discussion, voted to table these purchases until the September 8th council meeting to provide an opportunity for the Public Safety Tax Committee to weigh in on these purchases. Since these are the first major equipment purchases using use tax funds, the council, they want to take this kind of an unusual action to ensure that they are in step with you, with the committee members on these purchases. I know you don't usually see purchases like this, but this is something that they felt like they wanted to get this started off right. They want to make sure that we're 100% everybody in step in this effort. So today we'd like to talk about those 4 purchases, answer any questions that you have, and ask you to make a recommendation to City Council whether you think that's a good use of those funds, and really to ask any questions. So at this point, I guess I'll pause and ask if you have any questions for me, and or if you want to turn this over to Chief Halsey and his staff to talk about these purchases in more detail.
I have a question.
Yes.
So these taxes have already been accounted for and they're deposited in an account right now, and the city has the full use of that money, correct?
It's in a special fund for the use tax. Yes, so it's not commingled with other funds. It's just for the use tax. The use tax fund has been established.
So, and is there any kind of benefit to not spending it, such as interest accrued?
No, really, I think the benefit is to try to get the officers hired as quickly as we can. The problem is we won't get them hired as quickly as the money will come in. So we will be putting the money, it'll be invested like other city funds, and then that'll be applied back to the use tax fund. But the intent would really be to get that money spent in the hiring and equipping of these officers. And that's where the chief can tell you a little bit about where that's it. I don't want to steal his thunder, but he can report a little bit about how he's getting on, where he's at in the hiring process.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Mark, just to follow up on that. So if we've already received 2,000,000 and 750 is allocated to animal services, so then that means there's one and a quarter that's available for police use. Is that correct? It might just to
right. Confirm. But the year's not over, so there'll be more than that by the end of the year. It might be that there'll be maybe there's going to be 2,000,000 available for the police side this year, which would really be great because that would get us. It still doesn't quite get you to 30 officers though, but it gets us to more than we thought we were going to have.
Sure. Anybody have any other questions before the chief starts? I think we'll hear from the chief.
I can just back up real quick.
Not really.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I should have mentioned that probably the 30 officers fully hired and equipped is probably around $4 million, a little over $4 million for the police side of things, just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Don.
I was just surprised of the amount because of this year, the circumstances with, our pandemic. So that's really good news.
Right. Well, we attribute it, I guess people are buying a lot more stuff online, and the use tax is basically, that's people buying out of town, but using it here. So, that's what's happening there. So it's running ahead of projections. So we're very excited about that.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chief, what do you think?
So I'll give you a report on, as of Thursday, we have 12 vacancies for police officers. We had 10 in the academy that started this month. One of those, the first week, spoke with his wife and resigned. So we have also hired 4 of those police officers are on the use tax because that's what we have budgeted for this year. So far we have 4 hired under the use tax that are currently in the academy.
Okay. Question that I had as I looked at the numbers, how much for the radios, how much was going to be coming from the tax? Because it wasn't really clear on that.
Yeah, and I'll ask Dania. Thank goodness for Dania because she has all those numbers. She can give you the breakdown of that. I do have it for the radios, but if you want to go through those 4 items that we had on the council agenda to break those down for everybody, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, on the portable radios, the document that I believe you have just shows a total amount of $249,873. Of that amount, the use tax portion is going to be $26,772, and the balance is coming out of the sales tax. Do you need me to go through the other ones, or do you have the documentation on those?
So maybe some clarification there. When I looked at that, I saw $411,070. So What am I missing? That's on page 2 of the cover sheet for the.
Oh, yeah, that is because we actually have 2 different purchase orders with Motorola. So the beginning of the document, like under the agenda title, it shows what the amount is on this particular purchase order for the portables. But there's also radios that are installed in the cars. They're the mobile radios. So the amount that you're seeing on page 2, the $411.70, is actually 2 purchase orders combined. They're just trying to get the total amount that would be going to Motorola this year approved through council in one document.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay. I had one other general question. In our last meeting, we talked about the potential of purchasing, I'm not sure what you call it, Chief, gear for close contact or riots or that kind of gear. How much does that add to the 98,966 cost for an officer? I was just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, so that has been delayed until we can have this discussion. That was for the civil disorder equipment for the new officers. Here's the biggest thing on that, excuse me, is even though we don't have 30 officers hired yet, the issue would be this: if we buy those items, as we get down the road hiring 30 officers, there is a lifespan on that equipment as far as the ballistic helmets. It would be much easier, quite frankly, to just buy 30 sets and have them there so it expires all at the same time. The prices don't go up and all that. However, because we don't have those 30 officers, we have not done that order yet, because we want to put this in front of you all to have that discussion.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
And what
I have a
company are you
question.
looking at there?
Donna, I think you were first. Donna, go ahead.
Chief, yeah, do we have any of the shots fired equipment here in Independence?
You talking about the shot spot technology?
Yes.
We do not. It is expensive.
Okay.
However, I will
Yeah.
tell you, the foundation, that is one of the goals of the police foundation that was recently started. Once money comes in, that would be something that the foundation would be looking at as far as a goal.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think we did, but someone had mentioned they thought we did, and I thought, well, I just probably needed a little clarification on that.
No,
Thank
and
you.
Ken can
Donna.
speak. Yeah, Ken, go ahead and speak to
Yeah.
that if you would.
Yeah, Donna, Ken Jarnigan. We had them about a year and a half ago. We had them do a price quote, and what they quoted was basically the northwest quadrant of the city, and it was going to be $250,000 for the initial install and about $130,000 a year maintenance on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Donna, the last thing on that, quite honestly, we're waiting for them. They've been working with Kansas City the last couple of years on a mobile device, and that's really what we need in our community. We're not like, Kansas City, for example, that have certain areas. I mean, we have those issues throughout the community. There's no rhyme or reason. So when we really need to be looking at that mobile application instead of fixed.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
For those of us that don't know, could you explain what that is, Chief? Or maybe Ken, whoever was going to talk to that.
Yeah, it's a technology that pinpoints that they set it up, and I as far as the whole technical part, they set up a particular quadrant, and what it does, it triangulates the sound of gunshot, and it'll pinpoint it to an address of where that shot was fired from.
Wow.
I saw a demo a couple years ago at a conference, and they actually used Kansas City, one of their locations, as part of their demo. It was very impressive.
So my question was, what company is it that you're looking to order civil outfits from?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and I can look for that real quick. It's been a while since I looked at that, but Major Ed Turner and Captain Troy Hannicrat, Sergeant Lowe, and a few others worked on that. But basically what it is helmets with shields, shin guards.
Right, I just looked it up. I'm in front of the internet, and so I was looking up to see what it is specifically. But I was wondering what company they're dealing with.
Yeah, again, I don't have that in front of me, Miss Alexander, but I can certainly get that to show you or send that to you as far as what they are looking at. It's usually going to be off of a price agreement with other, whether it be Kansas City, or it's usually a better price for us to do that way than it is going out to single vendors if there's a price agreement in place.
Chief, I've got
The
that in
reason
front
that
of me
I
right now.
asked is because if you buy 30 sets of something, then you've got 30 different body types to try to outfit. And if you haven't hired, it depends on their body frame, I'm sure.
Well, the helmets are, the helmets are adjustable, but I think DC Jarnigan, he just said he's got that in front of him. So I don't know, Ken, if you can give us a little bit more details or not.
The helmets are from a company called TAC Elite, and they're $139 per helmet. And then the shield, the face shield, is looks like a company called PASGT, and they are $420
For a face shield?
per set.
For a face shield?
Yes, it's a ballistic face shield, so that means it's bulletproof.
Yeah, honestly,
and the gas mask are from a company.
Go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
The gas mask are from a company called Avon, and then the pouches to carry the gas mask in are from a company called Blackhawk.
And I will tell you all, yes, non-ballistic helmets and face shields are less expensive. However, I can go across the nation, and even in Missouri, a Missouri state trooper going to a situation in St. Louis, he was a passenger and he had his helmet on with that ballistic shield on his face, and a round came through the windshield of the car and struck that shield and saved his life. So
no, even you can't go with cheap junk for the guys. You got to have good stuff. If you're going to have it, you got to have the best you can give them. I just want to know as we're going, so I understand. So I looked it up and I have a clear understanding, I think, of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and now that we've, got to that point, even though we haven't ordered, we can certainly send that out to all the committee members so you can specifically look, if you desire to go up and see what those items are. We can get that out to you as early as next week.
And I think that's important because when you're looking at spending money, the more that we know about what it is that we're being asked to purchase and the reason why, the more sense that it makes for us to approve or disapprove a purchase.
Correct. I agree with you.
Absolutely. And we appreciate the chairman also pointing out that drawing did not have that in there. The drawing was just talking about a typical equipping of an officer. So yeah, good point. So when they get a little farther down the road with this special gear, we'll bring that back.
Yeah, I think when you get a chance, update that. I think that would be a good information. So, Mark, one question that I had was relative to the conversation at the city council. I did not get to listen to that particular council session. And so my question really is what their, I mean, did they have concerns? Did they voice concerns about this, or did they just want to make sure that this committee took a look at it, you know, because it's the first purchases, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's kind of both, you know, because it's the first one. The way that the city attorney has explained it is that, you know, this is an eligible expense with Proposition P funds, but what is appropriate is strictly up to the council with your input. And so, you know, they felt like, you know, starting off here, it would be great to make sure that we're all on the same page because, you know, and the way that the ballot language was worded and the way that the whole thing was set up, it's up to the council's discretion as to how they fund that, but they want to make sure that you are agreeing with their take on it, and so they wanted to get your input. I mean, we did tell them that you know, that you had earlier, you know, agreed you know, about the idea that, you know, these officers have to be equipped, obviously, but you know, now that we've got these specific ones and specific numbers, they wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to weigh in on this before they made any decisions.
So currently, how many cars are purchased and sitting in the lot for the police officers to use?
I'll have to turn that one over to Chief Halsey and Deputy Chief Jarnigan on that one. If you guys could weigh in a little on that.
Yeah, so the fleet that we have now, whether that be frontline police cars to motorcycles, besides some of the special equipment like the bomb truck and the armored vehicle, that was through UASI federal funds. But our frontline cars and the PD cars are all, I believe at this point, all of them are the ones currently in the field are all public safety sales tax money.
And how
as
many
far
of
as
them are there?
I'm sorry, say it again.
How many of them are there?
Total or within the different units?
Total.
Oh, hold on just a second. Let me get back to you on that one because I got to go back to my emails here in my computer.
Okay. Because my actual question is, how many cars do we have today and how many officers work there today? And is a car absolutely necessary to hire and equip an officer?
Yeah. So, okay. The first goal of the use tax money, when we get enough personnel, would be to have a community response team. That would be 2 different units to have 24/7 coverage, or I should say everyday week coverage. Their job is going to be a power shift where they come in and they answer calls for service during the peak times of the afternoon to prevent all the backlog of calls that we have going into the night shift. They come in at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. I'm not saying every night, but there is a lot of nights that they come in, those officers hit the field, and we may have 30 plus calls being held waiting for that changeover. The second part of their job would be, that's the busiest time for us, is mid-afternoon into the evening. All the neighborhood meetings that we have in the community are typically during that time. So they would also be assigned to go to the neighborhood meetings, find out what's going on in neighborhoods, be a liaison if it's not a police issue, if it's a code enforcement issue or whatever. But those 2 units would share a car. The sergeants, the 2 sergeants would, they could possibly share a car. But if we have, let's say, for example, if you have 6 to 8 officers in one squad and then 6 to 8 in the other squad to have the coverage, then they could share let's just go with 8. Let's say you have 16 officers total on that unit to help patrol, then you would need you need 8 cars, because our frontline cars, if you guys don't realize, they run 24/7. So our patrol cars, they're never down. When the officers come in and they get off work, the next ones that come in, they get in that district car. So really the frontline cars are the ones that are running 24/7. And our fleet manager, who also does technology, what he will often do was, before that car becomes too expensive to operate, he will pull those cars out to put them in other units to get more life out of them to save money, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
Hey, Chief, I got a number on the cars.
Go ahead, Ken.
208. That's counting everything with a motor, from an ATV to bomb truck, motorcycle to cars.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, and we have, our table of organization, budget-wise is 206 officers, but, keep in mind, several of these cars are going to be for special functions. They could be for undercover. They could be they're not going to be a marked police car, to give you an example of that.
And another, if I could, Chief, bear in mind too, we lose on an average of 5 to 10 cars, frontline cars a year, from crashes. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, the people that are involved with our officers in crashes don't have insurance. So we end up typically eating the majority of those costs when we lose a car.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Ken, because those are the ones we work very hard to stay within our public safety sales tax budget, but that does become, an issue if we have a lot of cars that get totaled. That's not our fault, and they don't have insurance. We basically have to work with the insurance companies to get them, not just the vehicle replaced, but the cost of the equipment, the cost to install the equipment. It's not just a regular car. It's got all that equipment in it as well.
Are we?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Donna.
Jared. Now, traffic has the chargers now. Is that correct? Traffic officers.
So going back, if you guys recall, we were ordering the Dodge Chargers because it was saving us about, I want to say, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, about $10,000 a year.
Yes.
So we ordered 10. I think only 9 came in. Correct, Ken? Before they stopped producing those. So when they stopped, they said, "Well, we're going to change the dimensions," and we didn't know what the cost was. So that's why we had to go back. The Ford is a good car. It's just we were trying to save money. But when they said that they're going to change dimensions and we didn't know the price, that kind of forced us in a corner to go ahead and purchase additional Explorers, because we cannot delay on those orders because it takes so long to get them. And they're frontline cars. So Dodge, I think that they're actually out now. The problem that's going to be that we've had with Ford and Dodge, anytime they change the dimensions of the car, if it's 3 inches wider, guess what? That means you have to buy a different cage. We try to retrofit cars and remanufacture everything we have, but that's why we put those down in traffic, just to keep them in one unit. And they're not going to be driven. They should last a lot longer, Donna, to give you a straight answer, because they're not running 24/7.
Okay. Yeah, because my question was that they're pretty fast, right? And I thought, well, wouldn't they be in patrol? But now I understand why your reasoning there.
Well, they're all fast. There's other, we don't like really fast cars, though, to be honest with you, because but yeah, that's why we put them in one specific unit, just to get the better bang for the buck, to have them last longer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So currently, your thought process is in ordering cars, is what I'm understanding?
So part of this, and Dania can go through that numbers, that's part of the question here that you and the council, have to look at is when you hire these use tax use that money to hire officers, does that include, what's it include? Generally we talked about it, but now that we're getting specific because we've hired for, that's the direction that we need from you all, so council can make a decision as well as far as the use of that money.
So here's a question for Mark, I think. Mark, you indicated that that the city attorney has stated that that this is an appropriate expenditure from the use tax fund. And so I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I guess I want to confirm that. But then secondly, I think beyond that, this changes what we have done as a committee, at least in my time on the committee, a little bit. If we were to recommend, or, I'm not sure exactly what your terminology is in terms of what we want to do as a committee or what you're asking us to do as a committee. But in the past, what we've done is we've received reports from police and fire, and reviewed the reports and made sure we didn't have any concerns about them. This takes it to a little bit of different perspective in my view. And so I just want to make sure I understand if the purview of this committee is changing, or kind of, I just want to understand that a little bit more.
No, going forward, it'll be like business as usual, I think, going forward. It's just that to get this started off on the right foot, and I don't want to, I have to say this probably correctly. The city attorney has basically said that the council is the group that determines what's appropriate as far as equipment and the use of these funds. And so the council has said they just wanted to get you all to weigh in, because we have talked about the idea of equipping officers. And so so this would be an eligible use of those funds if the council says it is. And the council has said before they make that decision, they wanted to get you all to weigh in at whether you think these 4 purchases are appropriate. These are the first ones that gets it started off. And, I don't know that they would refer things back in future, but, they always could. That's part of the great thing about having a committee to turn things back to people whenever they want to get more input. So they may very well have, and you raised the issue about that special gear, that may be another one that might come back. So I don't know, but this one here, I think it was more, they wanted to, since it is all about what they think is appropriate, they are the ones that would decide what is appropriate use of the funds. And they wanted you all to weigh in on it as well, because they feel like that's part of your mission, is to advise them on policy decisions like that.
So I guess I don't have any concern about us advising them in that kind of a way. What I do have concern about is us interpreting the language that was in the ballot.
No,
because my recollection is that language was a little on the confusing side. And so, I don't know that we want to be in a position of interpreting that or saying that our interpretation of that language is that this is a legitimate use of the funds. So I guess if we're being asked to do that, then I need some more. I just went through and looked at my language, and my file, and I can't find that language in my file. I know I've been given it somewhere, but it's probably probably an electronic file somewhere. So that's why I asked those questions, because I want to make sure that we're doing what is within our purview as a community.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't want to put you in a spot doing anything outside of your purview. So we understand exactly what you're saying. And that's where we were, that's why we were seeking guidance ourselves to make sure we understood what was being asked. And And what they are basically saying is that what all is to be funded is up to the council to decide, and the council just has indicated desire to get your input on it. So
I would like to make a statement. In my mind, the point of an oversight committee is to provide advanced interaction like this about purchases, and to rely upon the expertise of the police department to explain what it is that they would like to purchase, and for us to come up to speed about the types of equipment that they need, and to see to it that we are thinking all the way through things in advance. And one of the reasons I was not very interested before was because I don't do oversight where somebody hands me something after they've purchased it and said, does this look right? That's not oversight. So I'm glad we're doing this and having this conversation so that we can explore exactly what it is that they need and how we can help them purchase it and get the police department to where they're operating with safe equipment that fits the body type of the person that's been hired, and to make sure that they get what they need. But that being said, I want to make sure that when we're talking about equipment, we're not entirely talking about automobiles, because we do need to look at how many automobiles there are and how many active working in the community people there are. I think a person can drive their own personal car to a neighborhood meeting and be reimbursed for their mileage in a much cheaper manner than driving a $100,000 car. If they're just going to a neighborhood meeting where they're meeting with citizens, that's different than going to a criminal situation. That's it.
Well, probably the situation there is they may be going to a neighborhood meeting, but then they've got to go into service, with whatever else they do. So, if they drive their personal car, say from the police department to a meeting, then they're going to have to take their personal car back and get, a police vehicle, is where I would see that might not help that much.
Yeah,
And
when you're
it's something to talk about and
Yeah.
figure out.
no, those are good points, but yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, when you're going on duty, you're subject to emergency calls no matter what you're doing. I will tell you, I think the offer that we need to give everybody there is a lot of new committee members, and I think in the past what we've done is, maybe at one of the next meetings we can actually show you one of the police cars, exactly what's in the police cars, what the function of that police car is, the cost of that police car. I think that would be very beneficial to help everybody understand what that is. Because, I mean, for the officers, that's their office. I mean, they're in that car for 12 hours plus. But if you guys ever want to do that, we can certainly do so.
And I do have a question for you here. As far as like right now, when a guy gets out of a car and another guy has to get in the car, do you need some funds to see to it that car has been properly disinfected between officers? Because we do have this virus going on and we want to make sure that people are safe. And even though people choose not to believe in it or whatever, it's certainly present, and we want people to be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the priority of the police department. We have a lot of cleaning supplies that we give officers. Now, if we have an exposure with a citizen or even a suspect that we believe has been, if we have a potential that they've been exposed to that degree, yes, we are actually, through the CARE funding, we are purchasing 2 portable disinfectant machines. So in the future also, we'll be able to take that, and I think it takes 10 to 20 minutes to completely disinfect that vehicle. But we do have all the cleaning supplies. At the beginning, it was a challenge, to be very honest with you, to get, because everybody was wanting it. But
Sure.
right now, we're in a good position now that we have a whole room full. The fire department has disinfectant.
Good.
So we have plenty of disinfectant right now.
I just wanted to make sure, because certainly that's the first thing you think of is what do we need today to make people safe?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So I was
Mark,
trying to find on the agenda exactly what it was that they didn't want to approve so I could look at it, and I'm not seeing on the previous agenda.
Are you talking about the council?
Yes.
Yeah, it's those 4 items that you have the cover sheets for. That's actually the council cover sheets right there. Those are the 4 items that they tabled till next meeting.
so Mark, am I correct to say that you are asking for a motion from this committee to recommend to the city, the council, the purchase of the items on these 4 these 4 purchase items? You're looking for an actual recommendation from this committee?
I think so. I mean, Chief, maybe you might jump in there, but that would be my thought with what they're looking for. Just however you would like to express your input, that that you're in agreement with that, or whether you just, I think that you're making a recommendation to support these or those 4 specific things, or I don't know exactly if recommend. I think it would. My thought it would be a recommendation from this to the council to support these purchases. But Chief, do you think that's what the right language would be? Brad?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, that's
Are
that's
you
not
trying
really.
to tell me you want to buy 30 cars?
No, that's just not my wheelhouse. But I mean, I think that's the question, as Mr. Randall just said, to make sure that this money is being used appropriately if the equipment was purchased for those 30 new officers. And that's, I mean, my job is to make sure we get officers hired and take whatever direction, to get those officers equipped. But I think, yeah, that's the concern, because this is a new tax. I understand it completely. We need to make sure that you as a committee and as a council member or as a community say, yeah, this is the proper use of this tax that was passed by the citizens.
I would not be able to do that based upon our simple meeting today without a more clear understanding of specifically what we are being asked to do, because I want to make sure that.
Yeah, we're talking about these 4 specific things today. And I think that's really all we're really talking about. And again, we're not really asking you to weigh in on the law on it, because we've already got that. We know the council has the ability to make these purchases. We're just asking you on more of a policy recommendation if you think this is a good use of those funds. And these specific 4 things is what they're asking you for input on.
What is Mr. Mayfield's title there, please?
I'm on the committee.
And are you a citizen or are you
Yes.
an employee?
I'm just a citizen.
Thank you. I just wanted to know.
So if we were to have a motion that essentially said that based on our understanding of the use of the purpose of the funds from Proposition P and as, I'm just thinking out loud here, so bear with me a little bit, but as explained by city staff, we are in agreement that the, the outlay of funds from the for proposed purchases are appropriate use of those funds. Is that essentially what you're asking for?
That would be perfect.
So, I don't know as chairman if I can actually make that motion. So I guess my question is does anybody want to make a motion to that effect? Or maybe Mark, maybe I can make that motion. I don't know. I'm asking as chairman. Generally, under Robert's rules, chairmen don't do that. So, but I don't know.
I guess we could wait and see if somebody else makes a motion. Then we won't have to worry about it.
Okay. Do any of the other committee members want to make a motion to any effect?
I would like to ask a question if I could, please.
Sure, Josh.
We're talking about using the use tax as it pertains to purchasing vehicles to equip the officers, right?
Right.
I guess what my question be is when you have a vehicle purchased under the use tax, that's, as I would understand it, for the purpose of those officers to use. If it were, the vehicle were then to be used generally, I'm not sure that would fall under the rules.
That's a great question. In fact, and that's where it gets into the tricky part for Chief Halsey and Deputy Chief Jarnigan, that because you really hit on it. They have to kind of balance out this use tax equipment for use by Proposition P officers. So I don't know if Chief, do you want to maybe weigh in? I know you don't have it 100% everything figured out, but I know you've given this quite a bit of thought of how you make sure that you do that, separate that out.
Yeah, well, no, great question, Mr. Mayfield, because I was going to actually pose that to you all. That's my concern moving forward for not just me, but the next chief after that, because this use tax is going to be here. We do have a key system to where we can only grant access to certain people to have use of a car, and then that may be the answer. But I want to make sure that we're not crossing that line. If, for example, I'm just trying to think of a scenario. If we have a situation where we have something really big going on and officers are showing up and they're trying to find a car. If they get in that car, if a sergeant gives them access, is that okay? I just don't know. I mean, this is such a new, it's a good problem to have. I will say that, but I just want to make sure we're doing whatever is expected by not only you, but council and the community. So I don't know how else to say that. It's very complex.
I suppose, if I remember right, Chief, a number of years ago, there was some discussion about assigning a vehicle to an officer, and not running them 24/7 like you talked about. If we were in that environment, it might be an easier decision, but I think Josh hit an important point. My understanding and I would be in agreement with what he said, is that, it would assume based on my understanding, at least, of things, that in a normal environment, that these vehicles that are purchased from the use tax get used by the use tax officers. Now, that doesn't mean that in an emergency situation, I could understand a reason why that may, not occur for a few minutes or a short period of time, but just because of the circumstances of the situation. But that does, I think raise an important point. And actually I thought about this last night a little bit, because I'm just a little confused relative to how that might occur as well. But and so, I think if it probably, and I know we are not a policy making group, but I think that's probably going to be where the chief or the police department creates his policy to conform to the purposes and the way that the use tax is intended to be used. I think that's going to be pretty important.
I would like to, Chief, or Jared, I'd like to say that, well, number one, none of us, I don't believe, are attorneys, and we're not acting as attorneys in this situation. And if the city attorney has said it's okay, I mean, we're here to help the department protect our citizens. And I suppose we could get hung up on all sorts of technicalities. So I just want to say that I would agree or vote for this, to go forward.
So let me, if I can, let me make sure I follow up on what I was thinking as well. If we had, for example, 12 officers hired today with 2 sergeants, and we implemented the community response team, that's an easy answer. That's their cars. That's what they're going to be driving. The question is, the intent is just what you said, Mr. Fears. The officers hired under the use tax, that's the purpose. We have public safety sales tax money to purchase other vehicles. So, but if the direction came from you all, the council, and the community that nobody's going to get in that car unless they're hired under use tax, then we will figure that out. Because the same problem with let's talk about a great example would be the civil disobedience gear. Let's say we bought all that gear today, and we've only had 4 officers that are in the academy. They're not even on the road, but let's say we have a civil disobedience issue or incident come up. Are we just going to let that stuff sit in a room? I mean, that's kind of the direction I'm looking for as well, because I just don't know. I don't want to violate the trust of the people that voted for this and all that. I want to make sure that we're following what we need to be doing.
Let me ask a question. Currently today, if you had a civil disobedience issue, would you be able to handle it with the current equipment that you currently have today?
If it's a large scale, absolutely not. We have 30 sets of helmets that are not ballistic and shields. They are they're workable equipment, but they're not ballistic. We don't have shin guards. I'm sure you guys have noticed across the nation what's being propelled at the officers that are trying to keep peace and all that. That is a big issue as far as the shin guards and things like that. But we would actually have to call. Well, let me back up, Mrs. Alexander. If it's a large scale operation, we can't handle ourselves anyway. We'd be calling Kansas City and other jurisdictions to help us that's the bottom line. Now, as far as equipment, we have 30 shields, 30 helmets. That's what we have today.
So something that I would say today is that because of the current climate that we are in and the numerous gang-related activities that are occurring in Independence, I would state that I would be in favor then of the purchase of 30 sets of civil disobedience gear to include the bulletproof shields, because if we are in a situation that we are dependent upon a municipality that obviously can't handle their own problems to start with, we don't want to be there. So while that may seem redundant to someone else, I really think it's something that we should think about and do.
Right. And the biggest reason why I say you would have to rely on, highway patrol, other jurisdictions is because we still have to serve the community outside of that incident. So, and you're talking, it could be days and all that. But I want to make sure to be very clear on two separate issues: manpower and equipment.
Right.
If it's
But
a
you
small,
gotta have the equipment to even have the manpower.
correct.
I know it doesn't seem like anybody's going to go marching up the main street of Independence and have a big riot. That being said, Independence Center has been a continuous issue.
Yeah, thankfully, all of our demonstrations have been very peaceful. Everybody has the right to do that. We have not had, knock on wood, but you got to prepare for the worst, I guess, unfortunately. So,
But the other use of the civil disobedience equipment would also be in the event that you have a larger scale criminal thing that you have to go break up a drug house or whatever, right?
no, actually, that's two different. We are outfitted. We have special operations unit. So we have a full-time squad of SWAT basically, and we have a part-time, and that's completely different equipment. This is specifically for civil disobedience situations, if that makes any sense.
Okay. What's
one
your
of those-
view on it, Chief Halsey?
It's
If you
one of
had
those.
a checkbook today and the right to write it, what would you do?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What would be your viewpoint on this?
Give me a little bit more specific question on that.
Based upon the feelings that your officers have in working every day in Independence, do you believe that they feel like they are equipped in the event of this type of crisis, knowing that we're going down a pandemic road for the next 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question to answer, but
I see that someone doesn't believe me.
No, I was just like, unfortunately, yeah, we're in this situation, so it's going to be the difficulty traversing it.
Yes.
yeah, I mean, this is one of those purchases that you hope, and I'll just say it, hope and pray you never have to use. But if you have to, if something does happen, you want to be able to make sure that, number one, the officers are safe because they're the ones protecting not just the protesters, but also the community. So that's why, it's important.
And you can't hire people if they don't believe they're going to be safe. Nobody in their right mind is going to go to work someplace where they don't think they're safe. I'm sitting in the middle of a testing site right now.
Correct.
And I wouldn't be if I didn't think I was safe.
Okay, so maybe back to the question at hand. Does anybody want to make a motion to the relative to the agreement of the purchase of these funds given of these items with the funds as outlined by police department?
Well, I can make the motion, but I might need a little assistance with some of the wording. I would like to make a motion that the members of the Public Safety Tax Committee that are present support the actions of the council in relationship to the purchases made by Independence Police Department.
Maybe I would add
Do I need to?
proposed purchases, maybe. Would that be?
Yeah, proposed. Yeah, yes. Thank you, Jared.
Okay, so we technically have a motion. Do we have a second?
I guess I'll second it.
Okay, Josh, thank you. Now, any discussion on that particular motion before we vote on it?
Hey, just so you know, I think Jared also is online now with us as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right, Jared, didn't know you were there with us. That's good. So I appreciate that heads up on that. Jared, are you up to speed on what we're where we're at? I don't know when you came.
Yeah, I've been listening. I've been hearing the back and forth, and
Okay.
I didn't want to jump in and go one way or another because I believe someone mentioned that if they didn't believe they were going to be safe, they wouldn't be working. But I know people. I have clients that they have to work. If they don't work, they don't feed their family. If they don't feed their family, then it's just a chain reaction. If the police department or any other organization, whether it be if you're for more systems, realize that as Mr. Hawley said, they work in these vehicles 12 hours a day. I believe that some of the vehicles had, I thought I read somewhere where Ford or Dodge, they did some type of software where it'll heat the vehicle up for like 10 minutes, it'll burn all the contaminants out. And even though he said they bought some PPE equipment to sanitize the vehicle, so they need the vehicles. I believe this particular use tax was supposed to be split between the police department and the, not Wayside Waste, but the animal shelter of the department. And from what I'm seeing, they're not being egregious with the spending. They're not going out buying, oh, I need the new latest Daniels Defense assault rifle, or I need, a new Glock because my SIG isn't working properly, or something like that. I'm not shooting straight. It's not, they're just buy. I wouldn't buy to buy, but there is a, I'm up today. I've been here. I've been listening. I was still on another call, so I have myself on mute, but I've heard everything that you guys are going back and forth about, and I know you're comfortable saying that you don't want to interpret the language of the the bill that passed, or the language of it and the attorney. I guess I'm just wondering, are you going to set the money aside and not try to spend it all away? Because for all we know, you may need to hire, or you may need to buy something else with these funds. So let's say you hire the 4 officers, you outfit them with everything they need, and then you realize, oh, we need to buy this. And I believe that Mr. Halsey talked about, what if the car is an extra 4 inches and the cages aren't going to fit? So I wouldn't go out and spend all the money now. I would say we have X amount of dollars. We need to hire X amount of officers. This is how much it's going to cost. These officers are going to do X, Y, and Z. Just be as straight up as you can with them. I know there is a lack of trust between some city leadership members or council members, and they feel as if the funds aren't being appropriated correctly. Just the whole, like with the solar thing, and I know people in my neighborhood, even though they may jump off the deep end, with the utility costs and yada, 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 just be as straightforward as you can with people and with what you're going to use these funds for. I believe that if you show someone what you're going to use it for, if you like you were saying, I can show you this car and all the outfit of what each officer is going to have, I wouldn't put an officer in his personal car to get reimbursed for mileage to go to a meeting. Use an older car if that's the case, or if they need this car, do with it as you wish. It's like your job. You say you were at a testing center, you need certain things to do it. I'm not CPA. I my day. It's just it depends on the job. I'm not here to say yes or no. It seems reasonable for what they're asking for, but I wouldn't go overboard. Well, they approved it this time. They're doing it every single time because we asked for it. Wouldn't use this group or this council as a group to just overstep or have power your back in terms of going against the city council or the city attorney or whoever it is.
Yeah. So, Chief Halsey here. I think moving forward, regardless of what at the end of the day, regardless, I think it's still important for us as a PD of any use tax money. Yes, we're going to have those, meetings, but before those meetings, we send you guys that information, everybody on the committee saying, hey, this is, whether I don't care if it's a belt. I mean, but we make sure, because this is such a new thing, to keep the trust of the community that their money is being spent the way it's supposed to be, is keeping you guys even at a higher level than just waiting on the meetings, if that makes sense. I would prefer to get that out to you all as soon as we know. We'll send it to you. And then that way, when we have meetings, you can ask very specific questions if need be.
Yeah, I think that's good, Chief. Let's deal with the motion, and then maybe we may have some other things that we want to deal with. But I don't know who. I did not write the motion down. Mark, I saw you writing. I'm not sure if Dania was writing anything. So does somebody want to read us back what you have relative to the motion?
Okay, Dania might have to help me here, but what I wrote down is that Donna made the motion that the Public Safety Tax Committee supports the action of City Council for the proposed purchases of the equipment for the police department using Proposition P funds.
Okay, so we have that motion. We have a second. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, I'm going to call the roll then, and I'm going to start with, I'm just going to go down my participant list here. Donna, you're first.
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
And Josh?
Yes.
And Jared?
Sure.
And I would agree as well. So we have that motion passed. I think what might be beneficial to the committee based on our discussion today, and I don't know if this is Mark or who this might be should be directed to, but I think it might be helpful for us to have a conversation with someone, whether it's legal staff or whoever else we need to be maybe get some direction from, on really 2 points. Number one, some clarification on the use tax, the use of the use tax. And if there are restrictions from the perspective of, from a legal perspective that we need to keep in mind as we address any requests from police department in this particular case. The other thing that I think would be helpful to us as a committee would be if we could get some, have some greater direction of the actual role of this committee as it relates to, city council and what we are being asked to do, whether we are being asked to agree to recommend things that prior to council, consideration, or whether we are, as we have essentially been in the past, essentially, receive a report based on a budget that has been approved by the city council. We've received a report that says that, as the fire department, as the police department, these were our budgeted, this is what we budgeted, this was agreed to as a budget, and this is how we actually spent the funds. And we've asked questions, and we've asked a number of things relative to those reports in the past, but this seems to be taking a little bit of a shift, and I just think we would be helped as a committee to understand if the council is essentially asking us to approve stuff ahead of time, or what they would like, what they're asking us to do, if it's different than what it is in the past. So I think that would be helpful. There may be other things that other committee members, would like to hear from either staff or council or whoever, but that's kind of, those are the two thoughts I've had based on our discussion today, and going so that we are better prepared to do what we're being asked to do going forward. That's my thinking.
Very good. I wrote those down. We'll try to get more information on that. This was kind of a special thing. It is kind of unusual. So we'll definitely get back with more on that. But the way that it was kind of expressed to us, it wasn't to change the role, but they did think that they would appreciated your input, but on these things, because you do have an expertise, and they did think that was something they should take more advantage of. But we'll try to get exactly what that means.
Yeah, how much expertise any of us has when it comes to fire equipment, or police equipment, I'm not sure. I know I don't have tons of equipment of experience relative to that kind of equipment, and yet,
well, from a policy standpoint, you might say they just felt like they enjoyed.
Right.
They value your input from a policy standpoint on these things. So,
and I do.
If you are a CPA, you have the ability to handle money. I have procurement experience for 30 years. So I think that we can help a lot in advance and work together.
No, I agree with that. I do think it will be helpful too, Chief, as you move forward, for us to get some more information to the question that Josh raised relative to how you would intend to, separate the use of, or basically be accountable for the use of the use tax funds compared to other funds and other, sources of funds from, from the, that the police department has. I mean, I guess I have a hard time envisioning that we would, be so restrictive that in an emergency situation, you couldn't use whatever resources were available to you. On the other hand, I do understand that there's, that's what the citizens approved. And, that's the same thing that they approved, the same. I mean, it's not, I suppose in some respects, it's not any different than the other the sales tax that was approved, because, from that standpoint, those funds are set aside for certain purposes as well. Now that may be, it's a little bit more generic, I understand. And that's just for equipment. And so, but I think, Chief, that would just be helpful to us to kind of hear more about what your thoughts might be, relative to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's two distinct issues here. Number one is accounting. And I can ask Dania.
Hey, Chief, can I interrupt just 1 second? I apologize, but I have to jump off the call here, off the meeting really quick. But thanks again so much for everything. And Chief, continue the meeting, and we'll take down everything you say here with Dania, and the Chief will record everything you say and let me know. But I apologize, I have to jump off for another meeting here, but I really appreciate you taking the time to meet today.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, yeah, my thought is this, and maybe I'm missing, I hope I'm not missing anything, but I look at it two different ways. It's the accounting part of it, as far as, be able to show how the money's being used. And I can let Dania talk about that. I mean, it's going to be set up just like the PST, specific accounts with finance and all that. I think the second part is the operational side that we're talking about, and making sure, and I think that's just going to be, quite honestly, an ongoing dialogue with you all. Because if we had 30 officers, like I said before, if we could hire those 30 today, It'd be a lot simpler answer to that. But I want to make sure that we know where that line's at, that we don't intentionally or unintentionally cross that line moving forward as well, because obviously that's important. I mean, I live in a community. I just want to make sure that we're doing everything that is not just approved, but also in the entire community understands, and we're very transparent about it. So I think overloading you all with information now is more important than it ever has been. I think you guys are earning your money as volunteers for the committee. So
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So we do appreciate that, because honestly, I mean, it's a good problem to have. I'm going to say that again. I mean, we are so blessed that, the community supported this use tax, not just for the PD, but for the animal shelter. But I think now it's just making sure we're transparent and we're doing what's expected. So, I'll get with Dania next week and
Chief, it may be that we need to get, some sort of a legal opinion that would help guide our discussion in that regard. I don't know if that would be helpful or not. Maybe that's already in place, but citizens they voted, they passed the law, but then there's always interpretation of that. And so, I think gentleman that was on the committee sometime back, when after it passed, was kind of concerned about this particular part of the puzzle, and I know he's moved, but I think to help us understand what is appropriate and what's not, and then what our role in that is will be helpful. So.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why Mr. Randall was on today, because again, I want to be clear, that's not my wheelhouse. Mine is to buy the best equipment and make sure that we're staying in line with you all as a group, as a committee, the council, and in the community. So yeah, I think that now that we've had this discussion, as far as we've really peeled that onion back, the last time we spoke is more generic, but I would ask all of you all to be thinking about it too, because that's a great question. I think that's what we're trying to figure out now.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to, I guess, look at it too specifically, is so as to be too restrictive, like Jared said. I'm just trying to follow what I feel is the spirit of the law that was passed, while still granting the use of the money for what it needs to be. It feels tricky to navigate.
No, I agree. I mean, that's why I said you guys are, this has been a great meeting, but it's, I still think moving forward, it's not all clear yet. So I think that's why more information, the better right now, and just getting that figured out to make sure we keep the trust of, the community.
Well, and I think doing business in a new way is going to provide a lot better viewpoint than doing business in an old way. So I'm glad you're open and receptive to it.
Absolutely. There's not a reason why we shouldn't be, to be honest with you. So I appreciate the comments.
Is there a way that I can set up a time that I could meet with you and you could just kind of show me some of the equipment? I'd be happy to.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can on the committee, or even citizens can do that. I don't care, but yeah, just.
Chief, I think if you could set up a time for that, and then anybody that was interested and available that could attend, I think that would be great. Because I'd be interested in that too, assuming I can attend it. Assuming I'm available.
Yeah, and I mean, if we need to do it even early evening hours, we can do that. It's whatever's best for everybody's schedule. So.
Well, I don't know, do you think that something like right before a city council meeting, that seems to be a time that a lot of people have already carved out and we could just run across from one parking lot to the other. That would be easier perhaps for some.
Yeah, it's again, whatever you guys want, even if that or before or after one of our meetings. I mean, it won't take
Yeah,
terribly long.
that's what I was wondering, if we could do it, next time we had an in-person meeting, which I don't know when that might be, but Dania, do you have the date? I was looking for the date for our next meeting and I'm not finding it. I probably, I'm just not, I don't think I'm searching for the right thing, but.
Yes, what I have written down is that our next meeting is supposed to be September 23rd. And then this was supposed to go to the study session on October 12th.
Okay. 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 Well, that's helpful. Maybe, are we expecting that meeting will be in person or in, via Zoom? Or do we have a big enough space that we could meet in person? I mean, I think.
Yes, we do. We can do both if you all want. We have a multi-purpose room that gives us plenty of room for social distancing. And if you can't make it or don't want to make it in person, we can do a Zoom for those that don't want to come in person.
Okay, well, I think that would be a good move if we could, is to do that meeting and then maybe following that meeting, have an opportunity to take a look at, a vehicle, and talk through some of that. That way it doesn't get too early in the day, but people can stay around if they choose to and want to and have time to, and things of that nature. So.
Yeah, certainly. And if we need to do it, to help, catch everybody's schedules, if we need to do it multiple times, we're willing to do that as well, obviously.
Appreciate that. Okay, is there any other business that the committee wants to undertake today? Not hearing any. That being the case, we will adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting, and we will go from there.
Again, thank you all. I'm sorry for the confusion. Much appreciated for everything you guys are doing. I hope everybody has a good holiday weekend, safe, and enjoy the weekend.
You
All
too.
right, you too.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. See you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye. Bye. Bye.